Troy Dunlap, and my wife and two boys are behind the camera. Since the beginning of our existence, wise men, scholars, and scientists have searched for the answer to the highly debated question, where did life originate? How did we as humans come into existence? Today, I will bring the facts as well as the science to support creationism. Some scientists and scholars will try to say that there is no science behind creationism, or the belief that we were created. In fact, the science class that I'm taking for my degree here at the University of Charleston requires us to read the textbook, Science Matters. This textbook states that to believe in religion or creation means that you limit your scientific reasoning. I'm here to prove that not only is creationism a possibility, it has more science to it than not believing. In fact, let's look at the most popular scholarly beliefs that are opposed to creation. The first most popular is the belief in abiogenesis, or spontaneous generation, meaning that living matter originates from non-living matter. This was in part Darwin's thinking. However, Darwin changed his theory of the origins of life numerous times throughout his life because most cases became problematic for his theory of evolution. Even today, scientists and scholars and chemists have tried in vain to duplicate this theory. The most problematic issue is this hypothesis. There must be some kind of genetic molecule like DNA that is capable of passing on the blueprint for making proteins. No matter how much money, time, and even technology is invested into this theory, the fact is life can only come from one thing, another life. You can't make a rabbit from a rock. Chemicals in a crystal that is struck by lightning will not produce life. Life can only begin with life. There is scientific evidence all around us that prove it, and no evidence to the contrary. In fact, Louis Pasteur disproved spontaneous generation in 1859 by boiling meat broth in a flask. The flask was sealed from air, and it remained free of growth for an extended period. Even though this theory was disproved, scientists and scholars today still discuss it if it were a fact and not a hypothesis. Modern scientists have shown that by mixing several chemical components together with the right atmosphere, biological monomers can be created, but they have failed to replicate the origin of biological polymers. Biological monomers contain the chemicals that are basic components of life, such as lipids, proteins, and nucleotides, but they lack the ability to form biological polymers, which are necessary for this next step in developing an organism. Creating a few amino acids is not even close to developing life. The second theory that some scientists and scholars accept, but they don't widely talk about, is the hypothesis that we were actually seeded by aliens. This theory is based more on science fiction than science in itself. We don't have a living person that was around during the time that life was created on Earth. And due to that, we can only speculate how life began. Was it by chance or by design? Either which way you look at it, it requires faith. Scientists have not been able to replicate or create life. So their theory requires faith. And it requires faith to believe that all the complexities of a living thing happen by random events and coincidences, and that requires more faith than believing that we were actually intelligently designed. The belief in random coincidences that it would take to form a living thing is like putting a typewriter in a monkey cage at a zoo, and in a billion years expect that a book is going to be written. And if you have that kind of faith to believe that monkeys are going to write a book after a billion years, then you have more faith than I do. According to Darwin, all life, including plants, animals, and organs, come from one single-cell ancestor. Darwin's theory is that there were gradual changes formed from each species, and this was based off of fossils that were discovered in his time period. The problem is now we have even more fossils discovered and no gradual transformation of one species to another. All we have is appearance of some species and the disappearance of others, which is contrary to Darwin's theory. So if we look back at the evidence, we can see that Darwin's theories have holes in them that are actual pieces that they actually have more holes in them than actual pieces that fit, with no science proving any of it. But what we can prove is that life comes from life. And you don't need a whole lot of science to prove that theory.